The Atari Network is a fan channel and is not affiliated with Atari. The Atari logo and name is copyrights of their respective owners.
I've held off on reviewing Tempest 4000 for as long as I could, and that's because it took me a very long time to gather my thoughts about it. I knew I felt a certain way about Tempest 4000, but I had to search my feelings and figure out why that was. The original arcade game and Tempest 2000 are some of my favorite all-time video games, and I feel that they are a shining example of solid gameplay being king over everything else. Don't get me wrong, the vector graphics of the original and the chaotic effects of 2000 were by no means ugly or a detriment to those games, but it was the gameplay that made it a truly special experience. An experience like very little else out there. So let's take a look at Tempest 4000 and find out why it took me so long to get this review out to you guys. I want to start by telling you all that they brought Jeff Minter and Lamasoft back to do this new version of Tempest, and I was thrilled at that news. There was nobody else I wanted to see at the helm of this game, and if anybody can make a good Tempest game, it has to be Jeff Minter. He did such an incredible job with Tempest 2000 that he can honestly do no wrong in my eyes. And when I turned this new edition on and started playing, that familiar music started from Tempest 2000, and I felt like I was back home. The audio is even crisper and sounds incredible in Tempest 4000. Everything from the music, to the fire of your ship, to the voiced effects, shouting pleasure, and yes, 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 it's all I wanted from another Tempest game. Even now as I write this review, I'm listening to the audio play, and it's amazing. Unfortunately, I can't say the same thing for the rest of the game. Graphically, the game looks fine, and has a lot of screen shaking effects and stuff blowing up all over the place. I can't help but to shake that things don't look exactly right to me. The backgrounds feature a lot of flowing shapes, and they start flying by the web as you take care of business. And the colors are nice and vivid. It all looks really good, I think, and it's definitely a Tempest game in design. But why can't I shake the feeling that something is off? Maybe the new vivid bright colors and enemy designs just destroy the familiarity that Tempest and Tempest 2000 managed to maintain. But maybe it's just me. Maybe I'm in the minority here. So I'll just say that the game looks bright, crisp, and has a ton going on in a similar way to Tempest 2000, and I'll just leave it at that. The gameplay feels off to me too, and I think I finally figured out what it is. You still travel along the end of the web and shoot anything and everything that attempts to make its way towards you, while collecting a variety of power-ups and goodies. If an enemy makes its way to you, then it will also circle about the outside of the web until it can grab you and take you away. Enemies will also shoot on you as they draw near, and it can be very challenging to keep them at bay. But it feels like there are far too many enemies this time, and they sort of juke and dodge all your shots way too often. This makes the game feel significantly harder, and less enjoyable in my opinion. You still have your super zapper that you can use once per web, but the enemies clog all the paths back up just as quickly as I can fire it off. And when you're captured, instead of starting the web all over, you're brought back to the same area with the same enemies all over you. It makes it hard to recover once you start encountering deaths. On top of all this, the enemies seem like they also move faster, or maybe the webs are shorter, as they are on top of you in no time at all, especially in the later levels. This increases the difficulty, and sucks all the fun out of this legendary game series, and it's hard for me to believe that the same person that made Tempest 2000 also did this one. The gameplay is greatly botched, and the whole time I was playing, I honestly just wanted to go back to 2000 instead, which isn't a good thing. Obviously, if you want to go back to the previous one instead of playing the new one, well, something's wrong. And maybe it's this reason why I felt the visuals were off, as the gameplay might be throwing everything else about the game into chaos for me, besides the incredible and familiar audio. One bright spot of Tempest 4000 is the ability to play the game with the classic controller, as that's the best reason to own an Atari VCS. And with Tempest originally using a spinner controller, the classic controller is right at home. Unfortunately, the control is just a tad imprecise in my opinion, but it's still greatly welcomed and the preferred way to play. I'd also like to point out that for whatever reason, the leaderboard seems to be broken in the VCS version. I can't get it to load properly to see where my scores sit compared to the rest of the world, and that kills the competitive aspect of VCS games for myself, and a few others, I'm sure. All my local scores lack the ability to input a username, or even include my default VCS name. They all say logged user, which is just sad, honestly. These are small issues, but issues I wanted to point out nonetheless, as they all add a little more disappointment to an already upsetting package for me. I'm glad Tempest 2000 was included with the Atari 50th collection, because that is still the best in the series in my opinion, and worth playing on either the Jaguar or the Atari VCS via the before mentioned 50th collection. It's also worth playing on the Switch or whatever system you acquired the Atari 50th on. So to recap, I love the familiar and incredible audio of Tempest 4000, and the game ultimately looks like a modern Tempest game in style. The spinner controls of the classic controller is great too, and if you liked all the craziness of Tempest 2000, well, you'll find more of that here. Unfortunately, the gameplay suffers greatly, as there are way too many enemies way too early, and they are all over you in no time. And even after you die, the web is still cluttered with enemies, making it hard to recover and continue after you die. The leaderboards are flawed locally and just plain don't work online. Also, using your super zapper results in very little help, and that's supposed to be your panic button. So with all that in mind, and with a heavy heart, it's my unfortunate duty to give Tempest 4000 for the Atari VCS 2 classic controllers out of 5. I kept putting this review off as I tried to find a way to enjoy the game or put my disappointment into words. But the good news is that the arcade version and the 2000 version of Tempest are still just as good as I remember, and are still available to play. As a matter of fact, they are more accessible than ever. I gave Tempest 2000 the channel's first ever perfect score, so please, play that one instead. But with all that said, do you agree with my assessment of Tempest 4000? Or am I blinded by nostalgia that I allowed to ruin the new experience? Which version of Tempest is your favorite? And have you played or will you play Tempest 4000 if you get the chance? Let me know down in the comments section below. And with all that said, I'm the 7800 Pro System Gamer on behalf of the Atari Network, and I'd like to thank you all for watching. Keep it classy, web slingers.